Looking to pick up a PlayStation 5 soon? Well, I'm afraid I've got some good news for you. And E3 rumors are continuing to heat up for Nintendo with some interesting leaks hitting the internet that have people buzzing. So, I mean, we're going to talk about them. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to like and share the video. Also, the Knicks are in 4th place in the Eastern Conference and we have home court advantage against the Atlanta Hawks. I accept your apology for all of the slander for the Knicks this whole season, but unfortunately the bandwagon is now closed, so you can go root for the Hawks. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So it has been very hard to get your hands on an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5, especially a PlayStation 5. This is a topic that we've covered many times before because of, well, scalpers. Scalpers are buying these up, reselling them. People, unfortunately, are paying a premium price to play a PlayStation 5. That was a lot of alliteration. And really, there's no reason to be doing it quite yet, I feel. With a game like Ratchet & Clank, okay, now you're starting to talk about big PlayStation 5 exclusives that are going to do very well and look absolutely amazing. But really, up until this, I feel like you could have waited for a PlayStation 5. But obviously, supply constraints are a major issue when it comes to the PlayStation 5 and by extension, the Xbox Series X. Well, it looks like things might actually be getting better. We've heard a lot of negative things about having to get semiconductors for the PlayStation 5's manufacturing. It's something that's been impacting pretty much the video game industry. Beyond that, the world, like cars are having issues being manufactured now because of these chip issues, but it looks like things are going to get potentially better. In a recent interview with Wired, Jim Ryan, my best friend and someone I think is just an amazing human being, had to say the following about PlayStation 5 supply constraints and when we can expect them to come into fruition. We're working hard as possible to ameliorate that situation. That is a big word. I've never even heard that word before. We see production ramping up over the summer and certainly into the second half of the year, and we would hope to see some sort of return to normality in terms of the balance between supply and demand during that period. So I do find it interesting that they're ramping up production of the PlayStation 5 with the same sort of situations that are still happening within the real world. Obviously, these semiconductor issues are still prevalent, so it's not like they just like stumbled across a bunch of them and they're like, oh, now we can make more of these systems. I feel like Sony has wanted to increase the production of these systems. Maybe they've just sort of found a way to make manufacturing a bit easier on their end. There's been lots of rumors about a revision of the PlayStation 5 potentially coming in 2022 that wouldn't do anything as far as how the games are played or anything. It would just be on the manufacturing side. So maybe that they are starting to factor that into things, but I think it is very interesting. Obviously, the PlayStation 5 is still very highly in demand with games like Ratchet & Clank coming out. That's going to be a game that I feel is going to sell a lot of copies, and that's a game that I feel like is worth picking up a PlayStation 5 for. Like I said, my PS5 doesn't get a whole lot of love right now, but once these exclusives start rolling in, then they will start getting a lot more love. And of course, we'll be covering these games on the channel. So if you've been holding out on getting a PlayStation 5, if you've been struggling, it looks like the summertime might actually start to open up for you guys and you'll be able to pick up a PlayStation 5. This next topic also involves PlayStation, but I'm going to kind of lump it in with E3 stuff as well, because I feel like this might be something we actually see at E3 from PlayStation Studios. Now, of course, PlayStation Studios has started dipping their toes into things like Steam and putting their games available on PC. As of right now, there are a couple different games you can get. Horizon Zero Dawn, Predator Hunting Grounds, Days Gone, actually, I think comes out today on the PC as well. So it's something that they are exploring, putting older titles available to purchase on storefronts like Steam. Well, an interesting discovery was made that basically has the About section on PlayStation Studios' Steam page saying that there's 41 items listed under My Games. Now, if you look under the featured section, it shows 24 items, including DLC, but why would it have a difference if there is going to be 41 items available? I really think that at E3 2021, when Sony does their presentation, they're not going to be at E3. They'll be doing things around the E3 time, which I mean, it falls under E3, let's be realistic here. I think you're going to see Sony expand more into the PC and Steam marketplace with games. I wouldn't be surprised if a game like Bloodborne ends up on Steam with, you know, an uncapped frame rate or something like that. Could we potentially see some of the Uncharted games, maybe God of War, and maybe even Spider-Man end up on the PC? I think Sony is looking at the PC as a more viable option in order to get game sales, especially with the supply constraints of of things like the PlayStation 5. You want to keep these IPs and games fresh in gamers' minds. Obviously, the games that Sony is putting out on PC are doing pretty well in terms of sales, so why wouldn't you as a business want to expand upon that? And I know that slightly goes against some things I've said before in the past, talking about console exclusives versus console exclusives that are also available on PC. Are they truly console exclusives? But I feel like this is just the way that the industry is going. And when you're talking about games, especially games that have already released that are now coming out on PC and that were originally a console exclusive, that's sort of the marketplace that we're moving towards. You know, now it's like timed console exclusives. Now it's like, oh, you can get this game a few weeks or a month or a year on this platform before you can get it on the other platforms. It's a very competitive marketplace right now. And for a lot of companies, it makes sense to sign deals with companies and basically say, hey, we're going to be exclusive on your platform for X amount of days, and then we're going multi-platform, or maybe we'll have some console exclusive features that are available on the PC. It's just the way that the industry is going. So I would not be surprised if Sony talks some heavy stuff about games of their PlayStation Studios games, those first party games, end up coming to the PC at E3 2021. And finally, Nintendo stuff is starting to heat up with the E3 season upon us. We did a big video on the channel Saturday talking about some brand new leaks, but since then we've gotten some more information. Now, some of this doesn't really tie into E3 stuff, but it is stuff I wanted to talk about, but I think it's all relative at the end of the day. The first thing is we got a deep dive look at Mario Golf on the Nintendo Switch today. About a 5-minute presentation went up, taking a look at the rosters, the different game modes, and all of the things that Mario Golf is going to have on the Nintendo Switch, and I'm very excited for this game. Like, golf is kind of a boring sport, but you can make it fun. I remember one time I was golfing with my dad, and like we had the little golf cart, and I was driving and we were going down a hill, and he was like, you need to slow down. I was like, nah, shut up, we're fine. And then it like started to tilt over, so he had to like actually jump out of the cart and like sort of prop it up with his back. And yeah, that was the end of the day for me driving that golf cart. But there are 16 characters that are going to be included in this game, including King Bob-omb, who is making his first appearance as a playable character in a Mario game. And I've always liked King Bob-omb ever since, you know, Super Mario 64, so it's definitely cool to see him in this game. Like I said, I really like what I see from this game. I think Mario sports games are very fun, but they've always been sort of, you know, interesting in the fact that sometimes they try to be like a little bit too realistic, and sometimes they try to just go completely over the top. I feel like there's a good balance within the game modes of this game that sort of give it both of those feelings. So if you want to play it kind of like a more realistic style, you can do that, but if you just want to have fun and mess around with your friends, you can also do that too because of these game modes. I do think there will be additional characters added into this game as well, much like we saw with Mario Tennis Aces on the Nintendo Switch, but I think the roster of 16 characters is very good. We're going to learn more about this game over the upcoming weeks. Of course, it does come out in June, right after E3, so I expect to see even more information on this game at E3, probably just a little bit more of some new stuff that's going to be in the game that they're just sort of holding back on. Next up, we have some Pokemon related stuff, and you guys know I'm the biggest Pokemon fan in the world. You know, Pokemon, it doesn't do anything for me anymore. I want to see the advancements of the series. I'm looking forward to 2022, but there is going to be allegedly a Pokemon Direct before E3 2021 happening in early June. Now, this information is coming to us from Twitter user Kelios, who we have talked about Kelios before on this channel with various leaks. They actually correctly talked about the previous Pokemon presentation that we got earlier this year, where we learned about Arceus, and like that game is the Pokemon game I want. I don't want any of the other stuff, but allegedly fans can expect news on Pokemon Unite and Pokemon Brilliant Diamond / Shining Pearl at this event. There's going to be a release date for Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl at this, and I don't care about any of that stuff, and I know there's a lot of nostalgia tied in with people like that, but if that's all at this event, I'm not going to talk about it, because it's just, you know, like I said, I like to talk about things I find interesting on the channel, and these two games just don't interest me. I'm not saying they're bad games or anything like that. It's just I have no nostalgia for them. I don't really care for the graphical style. So if they don't talk about anything beyond that, it's just going to be sort of a miss for me. But I do understand that, you know, there's a lot of Pokemon fans in the world. There's a lot of people that like the Pokemon. So, you know, you got to mention it at least a little bit. But as far as a dedicated video, you know, whatever. I do think that we will see a lot of Pokemon stuff around the E3 timeframe. So this isn't like a groundbreaking announcement or anything like that, but it will be interesting to keep an eye on to see if there's anything beyond just those two games that will be at this event. And the final E3 related thing is there's been a lot of debate recently over some of the things that I talked about in Saturday's video, basically talking about how a new 2D Metroid game and a new 2D Donkey Kong game are allegedly both well in development, and there's a good potential that we're going to see these games at E3 2021. Now, for me personally, I would like these games, but on a global scale, on a consumer scale, would two 2D games and stagnant Nintendo franchises really hit the same as something like a more open 3D experience would? I love 2D games, but let's be realistic, they are a bit of a dime a dozen, and there have been other Metroidvania games and 2D platformers that have come along that are a fraction of the price of these Nintendo games, because let's be realistic, these games would be $60 a piece, so can you really justify selling it at that price? I'm not saying that these games are going to be bad, I'm just looking at it at a global scale. I obviously would buy these games on day one because I'm a fan of these franchises, but when you look at Metroid game sales, the series never really sells. So there's been a lot of debate over that, but now another Nintendo franchise is throwing its hat into the mix, and that is Kirby. You remember Kirby? Well, it looks like Kirby may be coming back, and there might be a 2D Kirby game at E3 2021 as well. So Shinya Kumazaki, who is the director of the Kirby franchise, actually put out a statement in the back of a Kirby-related art book that just released in Japan, and Nintendo Everything actually translated this information. I'll have a link to it in the description, because I'm not going to talk about the full translation, I'm just talking about what I find the most interesting. And they said the following: "And now finally we can move on to the next phase. I still try new things at work every day, talking with my colleagues about where to take the series next. Together with them, even if we only please a single fan, we are planning for the next stage of our future. The team is accumulation of the best aspects of the Kirby franchise, and we hope you'll look forward to what we have coming next." Now, there has been a lot of rumors about Kirby getting another Nintendo Switch game. Of course, Kirby Star Allies came out on the Nintendo Switch. It was a 2D Kirby game, and I liked the game. It was a fun game, but let's be realistic. It was very, very easy. Like, it was nearly impossible, like, not to beat that game. And I think the Kirby franchise should sort of lean more towards into the Donkey Kong style of stuff, where it's kind of hard. Like, if you look at Kirby's Adventure on the NES, that wasn't necessarily an easy game or anything like that, and it brought a lot of interesting mechanics and a lot of interesting things. It was really a hardware pusher for the NES, but it seems like Kirby just kind of has gotten into this state of, you know, re-releases of games and, you know, not really all that sort of creative stuff, just sort of the 2D platformer stuff. The 3DS Kirby games were really fun, but I want to see an evolution of franchises. Like, that's the whole point of re-releasing these franchises. I know there's the moniker of if it's if it's not broke, don't fix it, but something like Kirby, something like Donkey Kong, something like even Metroid, these franchises could use a refresh, because unlike games like The Legend of Zelda, unlike games like Mario, you don't have various titles within these games on the same platform that are different styles of games. You don't have a 2D and a 3D Donkey Kong game. You don't have a 2D and a 3D Metroid game. You don't have a 2D and a 3D Kirby game, whereas on the Nintendo Switch, you could play a bunch of 2D Mario games. You could play 3D Mario games. Same thing with The Legend of Zelda. So that's sort of what I want to see from these franchises. It's time to spice them up again. If you're Nintendo, this is the time to take a bit of a risk. You're doing very well financially. The Nintendo Switch is outselling the Wii U like ridiculous numbers. You're one of the hottest selling systems out there. Take that chance, take that risk, and I hope we see some major risks taken at E3 2021, because in the long run, this could pay off in dividends for Nintendo. Alright, so that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to let me know what you think of everything in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you guys for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. Share the video if you want. I mean, that'd be cool. If you don't want to, that's fine though. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Go Knicks! Knicks in 4, baby! Later.